Hello and welcome to Feedback for the week of June 2nd, which means we're halfway through the year.
Wow.
Which is
It's
kind of
also
scary.
that E3 thing.
Yeah, and that means we're through.
Yeah.
See, I was trying not to think that because it makes my heart go flutter, and it just did. So, hold on, shakes are passing. Okay, on this 2 weeks before E3 edition of Feedback, we are joined by Andrew Pfister, fresh off his Mario Galaxy 2 review.
Yay.
Morgan Webb. It's good to have you here.
Thanks.
Abby Happy. And Patrick Klepek. Yay. News. It's been something of a quiet week, but in our determined efforts to always incorporate something relevant to Activision,
We didn't last week,
did
did we?
We mentioned them, though. So
we mentioned that we didn't have them, and so we got Activision
I only
in the
get
show.
half of my Activision check, but this week, full-on mention of Activision. So
But it's not Infinity
$5.
Wars.
No.
No, Treyarch wants in on the action of being chatted about on Feedback.
Exactly.
What is up with them?
So, I mean, it's less news about Treyarch as much as we're seeing a common pattern in video games now where their EA and THQ have both expressed an interest in having these online codes to sort of hide certain content or services that sort of trying to combat used game sales. And, it would make sense that the biggest games in the business all sort of adopt that. We're seeing EA, with Mass Effect 2. We're going to probably see that with pretty much all of their games going forward. So naturally, MCV asked Treyarch, would you consider doing that for Call of Duty? Like, if you locked Call of Duty's multiplayer behind a code that you got with a new game, that's a pretty, that makes a lot of sense for that
But they
game.
haven't confirmed they're actually doing that yet.
No, and they told MCV that they're watching it, but they don't have anything in place for Call of Duty. But that's probably just more because it'll happen in the next game. But
Let's see how the others fit.
yeah, they said they're just going to watch to see how it works for EA and THQ. But they said that that is something that they're worried about, and I think it's more of a foregone conclusion they'll do something like that going forward.
I feel like it makes more sense with a game like Mass Effect, which doesn't have that strong online component, than it would for a Call of Duty game.
Where people play every night for months.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, I haven't. I mean, okay, no, it's not like I go in the game store and try to just figure out what they have used. But Call of Duty is not a game that I see too frequently on the used shelf.
No, right. It's also a game that I think people tend to buy for the multiplayer.
Right.
I have friends that don't even touch the single player, that just hop straight into multi.
Maybe they should hide the single player behind.
Yeah,
I was just going to mention that.
That's an interesting idea. No, it's a
also-
terrible idea.
I gotta stop giving them ideas on here.
They've got two multiplayer modes to work with: the kind of zombie-ish mode, and then the regular one. I don't know. There's a lot they could do. I'm kind of sick of hearing about.
It's most of us end up buying new anyway, so it's just sort of a moot
still.
point.
Granted, this is unique to the PC, but like compared to the DRM situation, this is a lot more palatable. I mean, it's kind of like. It's something you can opt out of rather than you're kind of forced to opt in on.
Well, it's sort of nice that it feels a lot of times like it's extra content, so you feel like you're getting a special bonus versus necessarily being locked out of something that's an integral part of the game.
Yes,
I think people would get really pissed off about.
Well, yeah, and if you did use the Mass Effect 2 code, you got the strangest, most boring, and pointless character in all of Mass Effect 2.
Yeah.
So, yes.
But it was free.
It was free.
So-
Free boredom.
Exactly.
What was his name? Duke or Elia?
Zahid?
Zahid?
It was Zahid.
That you can't remember the name says a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, none of us can remember the name.
I always
It
thought
really
Hebrew
was.
when I heard his name, and so I was going through all of my Old Testament names. I knew it wasn't Abraham, because that would just be strange.
Not very
in
Mass Effect
2.
Yeah.
Well, because at one point they asked me if I thought he was cute, at which point, so that's why I remember him.
Who's
so
they?
I don't
The
know.
game,
The
because-
girl.
the
the
yeah.
girl, Kelly, whatever her name is.
Someone on the
I felt
street.
like
She's
Greg
like,
and Ray
"Is
called
he
you
your
up.
type?" And I was like, no, he is not my type because he's like 60.
Yeah. Your options for sleeping with someone in that game
is that
as a
an
woman
actual-
suck.
I have Mass Effect. There's nobody you want to date.
We had
I
the
have-
same problem.
I have
There was
a
no
lizard
one to date.
man. I have a 60-year-old man. There's nobody. They're like, do you like his independent spirit? I'm like, no, because he looks like a lizard.
This is where I hope
And then
this
you have like the
conversation would
company
go.
man, and you have it's just nobody was like
the
fit
company
my
man. Oh no, it's not happening.
nobody
Okay.
fit
But
my
at least-
character's
At least he was my
interests.
age.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't want to get too off track, but no, you
Okay.
did
Cute,
say
but
with the
personality-wise,
Turians.
I know nothing.
I don't want to get off track, but let's get off track.
Let's get further off track.
But there is something. Go play your Mass Effect, everyone. What happens right around here on the Turians? Because I keep on thinking it's a dude in a mask. Like it's a human being in a mask.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like-
it has that look to it.
They don't look scaly all the way through their person. Something's happening
Only one
here.
way to
Well,
find
I
out,
wasn't about
Adam.
to find out.
You're right. Oh.
I didn't
That's
even
probably
want the
some
achievement
DLC
bad
too.
enough to get that.
Two Turian for me next time on Feedback. All right, let's move on to something that I think is very near and dear to everybody here, and that is Beyond Good and Evil 2. which was announced 2 years ago,
About
3 years ago.
2.5 million years ago.
Two-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure it was really announced. I think it might have just been a
Approximately.
fever dream.
I mean, we've seen nothing from it, and now there's all these rumors that are popping up that the thing is dead, but maybe it's not dead, but then maybe it's dead.
This happens literally every 6 months. So, I mean, this is almost, I mean, it's more just an excuse to plead that the game
bring it up
actually
again
comes out. Because, yeah, there was just a random rumor that Michel Ancel was leaving Ubisoft and is, over Beyond Good and Evil 2, and that he had quit Ubisoft and the game was canceled. And then, of course, Ubisoft responded just saying there are no changes. But every time it's not on the release schedule, I always send them an email saying, well, why isn't it on your release schedule? Say, well, nothing's changed. It's just not on our release schedule. I don't know. That game's never coming
Maybe
out.
it's going to be the best game ever.
I don't know.
Yes.
That game is never coming
Optimist
out.
The
and
best game
pessimist.
ever that none of us will ever play.
It will be the
Never
best
comes
game
out.
ever that never came out.
It's going to be picked up by
Right through the
3D
middle.
Realms. That's what's going to
That's
happen
where,
next.
that's where games go for perpetual
I
development.
I
mean,
just don't
obviously,
understand why people did not buy that game. I don't get it.
I think it was poorly marketed. I mean, it was a challenging marketing job, but I don't think it
Yeah.
was one that was
I don't
insurmountable.
remember seeing
And how
ads
many
for
games
it.
can we say that about? A lot.
yeah.
So.
I mean, it was a wonderful game. I mean, really, if you think about it, we haven't seen anything truly unique from Ancel since Beyond Good and Evil. 'Cause, I mean, King Kong, I always felt was like kind of him having to pay his dues
Right.
and do
it was,
something
it was like
commercial.
it was like a better than average movie licensed game, but that's still not what you wanted from that guy.
Yeah, no.
You didn't like killing the dinosaurs with sticks?
So
I didn't.
It was a game.
This is tied to the announcement of games that Ubisoft will be showing.
Ubisoft.
Will be showing at E3. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, which is the follow-up, which is a full-fledged Assassin's Creed game.
With a big multiplayer mode.
Yes. Sean White skateboarding, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Future Soldier, Driver, and of course many other titles that are yet to be announced.
Yeah, Driver, which they just sort of slotted in. They have not
Yeah.
announced that game. They've
Yeah.
been rumored to be making it, but then we're just like, we're showing
It's
Driver.
Driver San Francisco, right? Is it the
I
city?
think.
No?
I mean, is
I
this?
don't know.
The world does not
Would
need
this be
game.
Driver 4 or Driver?
It would be Driver 4.
It would be Driver
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
Yes, because that's right. Because the
Because it
last
was
one.
Drive 3R.
So why
Yes,
isn't
with
why
the
isn't
E,
the
yeah,
4
with the-
in the E? Why not? That's
I
seems
don't
Where are
know.
we going to
That
put the
seems
4
clever.
into the title? Oh, God.
I think the only thing is, I'm assuming it does not have Michelle Rodriguez or what's his face,
We can only hope. Michael Madsen.
Michael Madsen, which allowed for probably two of the strangest interviews that Morgan
the
and I have
Michael
ever
Madsen
had.
one never actually aired. I
Well,
don't think it actually
Lost
aired.
in Time.
No, because
It was unairable.
Really rough.
He kept on.
I
remember-
couldn't understand what he was saying when I was doing the interview because he was whispering in my ear and mumbling, and I was like, I can't ask a follow-up question.
That's just Michael Madsen's way. That's his way.
Well, I remember he got distracted halfway through it because Michelle Rodriguez left, and he just kind of just stared at her posterior through half of it. Anyway,
Maybe Ansel
Nice.
is working on Driver. And what a twist!
Why don't you be quiet?
yes, the car has no axles; they just kind of float there with the. Okay, that was a bad one. So let's listen to Darial. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's assume.
I've never been teased by a game as much as BG&E 2, Beyond Good and Evil 2. According to the gaming media, it's been on and off and on again more times than I can count. Please let this be the last time a rumor gets started that the game was canceled. And yeah, let's get some E3 love.
We are
Many
not
other titles
we are
yet
not
to be
seeing
announced.
this game at E3. There's no
I
way.
would be very surprised. Maybe a trailer. Maybe because of all this noise, they need to at least proof of life.
Maybe
Something
it's
like
Right.
that.
maybe it's the same trailer we saw.
Yeah,
They'll just
maybe
run it
they-
again. And they assume we forgot
That
about
would be
it.
that would be all they needed to do.
That would be all they
Literally,
needed
That
to
would
do.
make people excited.
I mean, okay, let's just. In the next 5 years, will the game come out? Show of hands.
I'm doing it because I have hope.
All
Because
right,
I
so
really want it to be true, and I can't live in a
Despair.
world
I hate
that's
voting
not
like
true.
that. I want it, but I don't.
I like you were like halfway. You were like, I don't want to.
you're like maybe.
We're all like that. I don't know.
6
Everybody
years.
No,
wants it to
I'm
come
saying
out.
no.
3
I'm saying
years.
no. Never
3
coming
years.
out.
All right, so in more E3 news, Rockstar not coming.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Shocker.
No.
No.
They do this sort of. They don't really ever do anything
No,
at E3.
they're
Sometimes they have like a
involved.
room.
They have a little thing. Sometimes they'll. Well, I remember like Vice City was on the cover of Game Informer during E3, so like
Yeah.
they'll time announcements around E3, but they're too cool for
Yeah,
E3,
they don't usually
essentially.
participate.
I
And
mean,
they don't really. They don't.
At the same time, I guess them publicly saying that they're not going to be at E3 is notable because this would be like the first E3 where they have 3 major games that we know about that are in the works, and that's Max Payne 3, The Agent, and L.A. Noire.
Which is still slated for somewhere around the
Max Payne is supposed to come out sometime early fall.
And just
Isn't
because
LA Noire as well sometime
Before the end of the year, but good. Yeah.
Just
no.
because they might not have an official presence doesn't mean we won't see those games in other areas, perhaps at a press conference.
Right. I mean, they said
true.
that they're going
That's
to do
true.
independent events probably right after E3. Makes sense. They think they're too cool for school, which is fine.
If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and read their quote here. It's a little bit interesting.
Yeah, they gave a statement to Computer and Video Games. In the end, we feel we simply don't have enough time to show as much as we would like and the time available. Maybe that sounds like they didn't, they're Rockstar. They want a big showing, and maybe other stuff kind of pushed them out of the way.
Press conference, or I don't know. Other companies manage to show 6, 7 titles. They have like 3.
Well, they don't want to compete against anyone.
Yeah.
They probably
Yeah.
don't. They
That
probably
sounds
don't
more
feel
like
like they should have to compete.
Like
I'm
against
just playing the
Agent, they
devil's
just showed the
advocate
logo.
side of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
And
last
this
year for
is-
Agent, they just showed the logo.
When you
Yeah.
say baller.
Yeah.
Well, it is coming on the heels. I mean, I guess, there's part of me that wonders if there might be other reasons because, they have a lot of good momentum on Red Dead Redemption. I mean, I think everyone is playing this game.
Yeah.
Pretty
And
much.
whoever, yeah.
It's one of those you need to sign on Xbox Live and like 16 of your
Right.
friends
Yeah,
are
exactly.
playing.
And they
Plus,
probably
do people really care about Max Payne 3? Like, I have to ask. Like, you know what I mean? It's not.
I'm intrigued.
yeah.
Yes.
I wondered if the movie hurt the franchise. Like, that movie, what happens at the end? Because I've never gotten to it.
I never made it that
Tonight,
far.
I'm going to see what happens in Max Payne. Because I never get to the part where it gets supernatural, which is also has nothing to do with the
I
game
fall
as well.
asleep every time. I never made
Yeah.
it.
It's just, Mark Wahlberg.
Someone will leave a
brood's-
comment
Yeah.
on the board.
Yeah,
so
that explains
we'll
it.
message
Yeah,
with
explains
Grace.
that.
exactly what
Spoil
happened.
Max Payne for all of us.
Yes, because I don't think we're going to make it through at this point.
Also, and that part of the innovation of Max Payne, I think this is true for Max Payne 2, was, the Matrix style slow-mo. That is now kind
Right.
of de rigueur in most third-person action
Yeah.
games out there. So I'm curious what they bring to the table that really changes it up.
But
Super
those Max
accelerated.
Payne games were never like huge, amazing 5 out of 5 games. They were fine, but they
Yeah.
were never something that I felt like if I didn't play it, I would be missing out on everything.
No,
Yeah.
I was most impressed with the way that the jacket looked like leather in that game. It just looked like it had been worn for a long time.
I'd rather they just announce Bully 2 anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
God.
please.
Yes.
College years. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
man.
care.
Yeah, I don't care.
This would be a lot
I-
of fun.
Oh,
Oh, I
taking
love
down
that
frat
idea.
houses. Yeah.
Bully 3, he enters into corporate America.
Or Bully 3, he just turns into like a character in a new GTA.
Ooh. Bravo to Abby for that.
That was a unanimous no cynicism. That was just a good idea.
It all interconnects. Our fourth story, David Cage, of course, the maker of Heavy Rain.
Mm-hmm.
He's casting for another game.
The website VG247 is, citing a source that says that he is working. There's a casting call out here in LA for his new game, apparently called Horizon, about a curious man raised very insularly, meeting a free woman who is hesitant to exercise her freedom, and it's apparently a sci-fi game.
Well, that sounds a
wrote
little
that?
bit like it
David
sounds
Cage.
like it sounds like being there mixed with a free woman who is hesitant to exercise her freedom.
That part's bizarre.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like Hedda Gabler or like what's her face in A Doll's House meets
Nora.
yeah.
I mean, I could see a sort of like Minority Report-ish sort of setting, like working with a game from him. And I think what's more interesting is that he told in a number of interviews saying, like, you're going to see this game a lot sooner than you think. I don't think that's necessarily
What,
E3.
3 years from now?
but,
Instead of 4?
but that the idea that we wouldn't be waiting another 5 years for,
Right.
for
Like,
his
So
game.
maybe
Being there
holidays
with-
even. Like, that would be sooner than I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he poo-pooed any Heavy Rain sequel?
Yeah, I mean, I know he briefly talked about it, but it sounds like any of that stuff will just be DLC, which we've seen
Yeah.
nothing else since
Right.
the
Well, the
original
taxidermist.
DLC, right?
I don't know where you go with that story. It
It's
kind
been
of
told.
resolved itself.
I was thinking of being there mixed with somebody raised by wolves, but since it says it might be science fiction, space wolves.
Well, no,
Robot wolves.
There'll be an epilogue where you find a teleporter.
I had one good idea today. I'm out.
Horizon.
Well, so the guy could be Jack from Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Could
He's
be.
raised insularly. She was raised. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
You're with me.
I don't know. Jack was kind of right there on the borderline. Like, it was, Boys Don't Scream or something like that.
She was my favorite.
Mava Dofer. Me too. Mava Dofer 09. I don't know
There's
what
no
that
This
R
is the
in
most
there.
complicated
Mama
name
Dofik.
we've put on
Yeah.
feedback so far.
Winner.
We're going to call him Mr. Alphabet and a number.
Mr. M.
I always admired the fact that David Cage stated outright at the beginning that there would be no sequel to Heavy Rain. It makes the wait for this game so much more satisfying.
But do you imagine that the gameplay in the game is going to be like the same thing, but it won't be a sequel because they're not taking any of the characters or plot from that, but he's still going to use the same
I would
mechanics?
assume so.
You can
Yeah.
tell a lot of different
right?
stories that way.
Exactly.
And probably
Which is
he'll-
what we figured that he would do. But
He
do you
probably
think they'll
has
change
some
it at all?
new ideas with the interaction.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He probably was learning
Totally.
a lot while making Heavy
Right.
Rain and went, boy,
Yeah.
I would really prefer to be making
Yeah.
this game, and I'm kind of locked into.
He seems like
Heavy.
the kind of guy that when he starts something, he realizes like he's
Yeah.
always very honest about his mistakes. But I guess
Oh,
it's-
yes.
you have to lock into something, and at some point you
Right.
can't.
There's
change
some
it.
stuff on the
Right.
cutting floor. I'm sure that would make more sense for this game.
There's some stuff on the cutting room floor that would make more sense for Heavy
True,
Rain.
I agree.
Such as, how does she know to go to the guys to the crazy doctor's house?
We
I
ask
don't know.
Why is he
questions when we
blacking
hear all
out? Why
day.
is he blacking out?
All right, let's do a quick rundown also of some games that are we've seen that are going to be at E3 that we've now been allowed to talk about. Call of Duty Black Ops. What are you guys? It was you.
Yes,
wasn't it,
I
that
saw it
that?
with you at the
What was your
Activision
take
thing.
on that? We saw 2 levels of Black Ops, and I was quite impressed.
I was really impressed too. They seem to be not missing any beats. I mean, they're taking the intensity of Modern Warfare 2, and they're just kind of like retrofitting it to Vietnam in the Cold War era. I think it was really cool, and it was really good preliminary look at it. Going up in the, they started off the demo. You're actually flying the SR-71. You're taking off on the runway, and then you're doing a little bit of surveillance and recon, and then it instantly puts you on the ground with the ground troops in this. Was it Russia?
I think
Was
it
that
was
part Russia? Yeah.
There was enough snow that it was Russia
Yeah,
or
it was-
northern Poland or Belarus.
somewhere in that area, and you're running through with your Black Ops team, and you're doing the usual Call of Duty stuff. You're being sneaky at first, like avoiding the dogs in the snow, and then you're infiltrating the area, getting the intel you need, and then of course they find you, and it's an escape, and you jump off a cliff,
Yeah.
and that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was, the way I saw it, the second level we saw was in Vietnam, and that level, it's harder to describe because it reminded me of the best part of Modern Warfare 1, where it was just the chaos of battle.
Yes.
You just, more or less, you're like, I just need to survive, and you can't make heads or tails of what's going
The
on.
skies were red,
Yeah.
everything was exploding.
Can you call in
just shoot.
napalm strikes?
Yeah, there was napalm.
There was napalm. I don't know if
Like,
it
could
was
you
called
imagine
in.
doing that in multiplayer and being able
Yeah.
to just like
Right.
obliterate part of the map for at least a period of time with like a napalm?
There definitely
strike?
was
That'd
napalm
be cool.
involved.
I would not be surprised if that's
Do
going to
that,
be
They
in the
wouldn't
do
game.
have
that
left that
over
on the table.
respawn points. You respawn and you just burn.
Yeah,
over
there would
and
have
over
to be
again.
rules.
But what was cool is that the
I'm
two
just like
levels...
on fire for like half an hour. Levick.
Feedback is full of great ideas today.
The 2 levels that they showed really made a point that there's going to be a lot of variety in this game. That the tone of the first one that was in Russia felt to me a little bit more like Modern Warfare 2 in the action movie quality, whereas the other one felt like that really gritty, like you want to know what it's like to be a soldier. Here, see, you don't like it.
Yeah.
And that if there's that much variety in this game, that's going to... I think where Treyarch's always been saddled is trying to tell yet another World War II story.
Yeah.
And it's like, they have a lot to prove with this one. I think they're going to do it. I
Does
hope.
it, does it feel like, is there anything substantially different of like a Treyarch, like Call of Duty? Does it, like when you looked at it, you're like, oh yeah, that's not an Infinity War? Or does it still kind of feel like, well, there's another Infinity War
There was a
game?
dog.
Yeah, I mean, the
That's the one.
casual observer would probably never know this wasn't made by IW.
Yeah.
I would have to assume that spending time playing the game, that's something that feels like Treyarch would come out. But I don't know if...
It's hard to tell when you see 2 levels.
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Well, it's also, they chose these 2 to impress us, and maybe they wanted it to say, hey, look, it's going to be a little more familiar to IW stuff. Killzone 3.
Yes, I saw it last week, and I'm not the world's biggest Killzone fan. I actually finished Killzone 2 over the weekend and pretty much hated it. But I saw Killzone 3 before I finished Killzone 2, and I'm much more excited for some reason for Killzone 3 because
And what is it
it's
about it?
No.
yes, the first level, or the only level they were showing us was snow again, which seems to be a shooter thing this year. But it plays to me a lot better than Killzone 2. The aiming seems better, the shooting action seems better.
Yeah, the controls would have been my concern, but it feels more polished.
It seems like that's the one thing that they're really addressing.
Well, the one thing I remember about Killzone 2 is that the last time I saw it before we got the game for review, the controls were really, really loose. And something clearly happened in the 11th hour because what we had was far superior to what was originally being made for the game.
And then they patched it immediately after the game
Yeah.
came out.
Yeah.
Ah,
And then hopefully
everyone hates this.
they realized that is the single most important thing you need in a shooter. Don't
Yes,
right.
don't work on the pretty. Don't do nothing until you have your aiming down. Is the cover mechanic still the same way?
I believe so. I didn't really get to play too much with it, and
Okay.
I was just running and gunning most of the time
Okay.
and having good success with that. But
Good.
I believe it's the same way where it's on the trigger and you're just kind of...
And you're holding it down.
yeah,
the whole
which I
time.
liked in Killzone 2, actually. That was
Okay.
one of the things I did like.
And the third game, Harry Potter, or as I like to call it, Gears of Magic.
Yes.
We had a bunch of things.
Gears of Wands, Wands of War.
I mean, we saw this at a pre-E3 event a couple weeks ago, and I've played the last like 3 EA Harry Potter games just because I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and the game
I would have never guessed.
I wouldn't have
right?
guessed.
Do you read it in your hat?
Why do you think I live down the street from a wizarding shop?
It's true.
That's actually true.
It's also a Twilight store.
It is. So I half hate it.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I play them mostly because like they're fun, simple, they're dumb games. They're not very good, but they're a reason to go in and kind of play around in that world. So I walk in and when I saw the last game, they had said the series is going Wii only, pretty much. Like we're just doing ports of the Wii games. And then with this one, I walk in, thinking that's where the direction they're going, and the producer's just like, "Oh, nice headshot, dude." And like that's like the first thing that they were talking about, and they were so essentially it's Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 because they're splitting the movies in 2, so they get double the money. And the game is following that format, but it's essentially they just looked at Gears of War, shoved Harry Potter in there, took out the guns, put in wands and magic instead. But the wands are changed over to the mechanics of different video game weapons. And I made sure I got the producer talk about this on camera because I was like, this is actually slightly disturbing that you're describing like stupefy as a bazooka. And I'm just like that. And he's like, well, it makes it easier for people to understand that spells like a machine gun. I'm like, I don't know if J.K. Rowling would approve of this terminology.
Doesn't she have to sign off on all that?
I know she has to sign off on the concept. I don't know if
might not be
I don't know if the producer notes she has to sign off on.
If she really got the whole point of like bazooka, machine gun.
I don't think that was probably in the design.
That wording probably
She's
wasn't
like, that's
in
gum in the States now, isn't it?
And, yeah. And what came across to me, what it sounded like, and they said this several times in the demo, was that and this game has a cover system too. It's really bizarre. And but they said that the development studio finally gets to make the game they wanted to make, which more sounds like they got effing tired of making Harry Potter games. And we're like, I really just want to make a Gears of War game. And the game is really early, it feels really early. It feels like a team's first attempt at making a Gears of War style game. It's very clunky, but if they wanted to get people talking about Harry Potter games again,
there you go.
But their
was the way
audience
to
is
do
also
it.
aging. I mean,
Thank
they're
you.
not
Yes,
going
yeah.
for that little kid audience anymore. They've got, their kids have been growing up, and there's adults who want to play it, and
that's what they said. They said that the game
and you.
and me. I'm on the outlier, outside of the demographic. But they said that, the kids that went and saw the first movie or read the first book, they're 6, 7, 8 years older now, and so they're playing those other games and they're losing that
They're older
audience.
than that, aren't they?
Depending on when you jumped in, yeah.
No, he said 6 or 7 years ago, so they're probably like 13, 14,
It depends on if you're talking
But
about
those
the book
books
or the
were
movie.
really
Oh,
those
right.
books are really popular with adults to begin with.
Yeah.
But the games always skew really
The game's
young.
skewed really, really young, and it seems like, it was just like the contrast of the games are whimsical and fun, and you're doing little wee things, and it's funny. And it's like effing headshots.
And you're
It's
already
like,
pretty much
whoa!
guaranteed a nerdy audience. So
Yeah,
you
no,
might
I mean, that-
make an adult game for Harry Potter, see if it works.
That seems to be their approach, and I will give them credit. I am more interested to play it now just because it's so random.
And
But
now
I
I just
probably
want
just rather
magic
play
in my
Gears of
Gears of
War.
War 3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now I just need to fuse the two together.
Yeah. Oh, man, that'd be cool.
Yeah, DLC.
Dom with some of those cute glasses.
Chainsawing Harry Potter in half.
Oh, man.
I like it.
Run it by Clifford E3.
Really, full of good ideas today. You're right, Andrew. Okay, let's talk about our game of the week. Super Mario Galaxy 2. You reviewed it.
Yes.
You liked it.
I liked it a lot.
Do you think it's better than Galaxy? How is it different than Galaxy?
It seems it's because I really loved the first Galaxy. Because back when Galaxy 1 was announced, I was really worried because it was the debut of the Wii, and they're doing the Wii music thing, and then they had a montage of games, and they just secretly snuck in Super Mario Galaxy into the footage for 30 seconds. I'm like, is the Mario franchise over? This is the first game after Sunshine. They're not treating this seriously anymore? Are they putting it on the shelf? No, it didn't. It turned out to be Super Mario Galaxy is one of the best 3D Mario games ever made. So Galaxy 2, what I was expecting was just more of that and more refinement and more just cutting out the crap that was in the first one, like the hub world and stuff and the story, stuff like that. And it's just distilled awesome 3D platforming.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that the best part of Galaxy was the variety of the levels, and this feels like there's it's probably more varied because you're not staying in the same environment for 3 or 4 levels. If they feel they've exhausted that waterfall, Okay,
And
let's move
it's
on.
not
Let's
so
go to
much the
something else.
variety of the levels, it's the variety within the levels themselves, in addition to that.
Yeah.
So within the levels, you'll be doing multiple power-ups, multiple like aerial things, platforming things. They just keep changing it up on you.
I mean, it seems to be a formula that works. Morgan?
I see why people like this game. I just am not one of the people who is in love with this game. I think it looks too cartoony for me, and I feel like I've done the Mario nostalgia thing. Like, I loved Mario just as much as everybody else.
And you love
I'm
platformers. I want to get that
I
out
love
there. Yeah.
platformers. It's so cartoony. It's sometimes I just feel like I'm not for, and I want a little more from the graphics, you know, and I want a little more not adult content, but you know what I mean? Like, just, it's so cartoony. It's really hard for me to get into it. And it's so like, the little storybook in the beginning, really, like I'm flipping storybook pages. I don't know. I'm just too old.
Well, the one thing I have to comment on, there's nothing you can spoil in Mario.
Yeah.
Hold on. Bowser kidnaps the princess. Okay,
Like, let's
ruined
skip it.
There might
You
be
know what I
8
mean?
levels, and
No, but
you know.
Here's the thing that I really couldn't get over. So you're on like the Mario ship, and like you get the
The
toads,
face ship.
and you get the little toad dudes that keep on showing up, and you have the big star guy who's talking about them, and it's like, well, he wants to be a banker, and he wants to be that. I started to think, is it kind of like a mental asylum where they're just indulging the fantasies? Because they never come across as if these people are competent at being a banker or anything else. And as Matt Kyle pointed out,
So you won't give him your star bits? No.
in none of the Mario RPGs have you ever seen a school. And so, like, I've always wondered. I want to kind of.
I never thought about that.
I think they're all kind of simple.
They're simple folk.
Well, there's bars. I mean, they have bars. You can learn a lot in a bar.
I guess, yeah.
In Mario and Luigi. I guess they're fruit shake bars or whatever those things are
Yeah,
called.
whatever.
But I accept those graphics on the DS. I think that's interesting. I was thinking about like this. It's the same like the Mario and Luigi RPGs.
mean the art
I
style?
love those games, but they work on that on the DS.
It was the first
but-
time that I wanted to downgrade my TV. I
Yeah.
mean, like playing 1080, 1080i, I guess,
Yeah.
like television, 40-inch, and it looks jagged and it looks bad. And I thought about dragging out the old giant SD TV and
Yeah.
just plugging it into there because
Wii games
there
do
it
look
looks great.
substantially
So-
different.
But then,
on a-
Yeah.
like the simplicity of the graphics and the primary colors actually works in the favor of
Yeah.
that.
Yes. In contrast to other Wii games,
Yes.
they're trying to do something more complex. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, this is about this. This is the limit. This and Red Steel are about as far as you can
They could
go.
have done a more 3D look or like a more. There's so many things they could have done with that engine, and they just made it so flat.
But in terms of the gameplay,
The game, it's great. I mean, it's great. It's exactly what you want from exactly what you expect from Mario.
It's a Mario Galaxy expansion pack. Like it's literally just distilled, like refined Mario Galaxy. It's not changing the way you thought of 3D platformers like Mario Galaxy did. It's just, did you love that game? Would you love
Which is-
another 12
Would you
hours
love
of that?
more
of
And
it?
I'm
Fun.
totally
Yeah.
okay with that.
which is, I mean, really, when they tried to redefine the 3D platformer, we ended up with Sunshine, which
Yeah.
I still have never finished it because I just don't get it. I mean, it was just kind of a strange.
I think
like,
if that game had not been a Mario game, that would have been accepted a lot differently, I think. But when you put in
Yeah.
Mario with you got like a
Right.
weird, washing mechanic, I think people were just like,
A lot of people, their fondest memories of Sunshine were the levels where you didn't have the water pack, like
Which is
the
platforming
old school
levels,
ones, yeah.
Which now, in retrespect, kind of is the foreshadowing of what we got with Galaxy.
which was just at the same time, Galaxy and those levels really are what traditional Mario used to be. I mean, especially on the NES games, there is no excuse as to why you're in a particular environment. The idea of like the gameplay and what they could manipulate with it, that led the charge. And then they kind of bundled in maybe some narrative like excuse for why it existed. They seem to be doing that more in Galaxy and just. They don't even try to come up with an excuse.
No.
Why there was a chimp with sunglasses, I have absolutely no idea. All I know is that
don't question
challenge.
it.
I almost had an aneurysm trying to do that first chimp
Yeah.
thing.
Oh,
I remember. Yeah.
wait until you get the second chip thing.
I know.
Then the third, yeah. No, actually, what I love about Super Mario Galaxy 2 is it's like my favorite co-op game ever now. Not just because they fleshed out the girlfriend mode. Well, it is.
It is. That's,
Yeah.
I've never heard it described as that, but that's
honestly,
funny.
I think of it as little sister or little brother mode.
It
That,
could be
like,
both.
Okay,
like
yeah.
the
sure.
older sibling always gets to command the console.
Right.
This is how you get them.
But
to
there's a
pulling the
lot that you can
controller
do
away.
in terms of stopping, stuff. And it's a lot easier to get through a lot of the levels if you have someone doing that. But that's not why it's my favorite co-op game. It's my favorite co-op game because when I get really, really frustrated, I can hand the controller off to one of my friends who can then play through the level that's really frustrating me. And when they get frustrated, they can pass it back. And it actually makes a really good... I remember playing Mario games like that.
Yeah.
Super Mario World. My friends and I would just pass it back and forth. Someone to do a level because no one wants to sit there and
The-
watch you do the
Right.
same damn
The
level.
first
that they
few
just
Mario
did.
games are based on that with Luigi.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you die once, it's Luigi's turn.
Yeah, but it would not even. We would just play Mario, and somebody would go through one when there was over because nobody wanted to wait around for them to go through it again. So I just had fun playing this weekend and just passing the controller off. Like when it's level, like I'm really good with the flip stuff. I'm kind of terrible when I have to roll on the ball. So when I'm bad at, you just pass it around and everybody gets a chance to get through those levels. It's really fun.
The only thing, probably my most frustrating moment in Mario Galaxy 2 though was the flying levels. Like the ones where you got to hold the Wiimote. Like,
Oh,
what?
God
What?
damn it, I
Okay.
hate those.
What?
Here's-
Like I literally, I'm sitting there like, Miyamoto, come on, like you played this, right? Did you play this?
Now,
Like,
I like the same thing was in Galaxy on that one where you're racing. I think you're on the back of a seal or a.
oh, the
Oh,
water
yes,
one.
yes,
the
water
yeah.
one.
Now this was still superior to that because at least you can't fall off the edges. It's a theory I'm throwing out there. When I first picked up Galaxy 2, I was kind of cranky and frustrated and tired, and I played like crap. I put it down for 4 days. Over holiday, I got some good sleep, and I started playing again, well rested, and that same level became really, really easy. Like I just kind of it's they want it to be so subtle though, and it just makes absolutely no sense. Like. No, come on.
Well, I mean,
it's a Wii, and let me go
Right.
like this, and don't make me make it so one to one.
What's also interesting about, and this happens with kind of platformers in general that require very precise movements, is that, Mario Galaxy is a game that, like, I hear from a lot of people that have been playing it, they're like, oh, well, some of the later levels get really, really hard. But like you said, it's a game you should set down and come back to. Like,
And it even tells you to.
If
Yeah.
you find yourself playing one mission 20 times in a row, like, you're over-analyzing your own movements at that point.
Yeah.
And most times, if I just left that, went to a different star, and came back,
Yeah.
I would do a
It's
lot
like
better.
crossword puzzles. If you put it down and then come back to it a day or two later, then everything kind of makes sense and fits
And that's
together.
almost really frustrating when I come back and do it like the first try. I'm like,
Well, I swear to God, my pets have learned more profanity this weekend. It was a toss up between how much I cursed during Super Mario Galaxy 2 or how much I cursed during Red Dead. I'm not sure still which one wins.
I think for me, Mario. Yeah, there's that other one. Same as that damn chimp world where there's a hidden level and you need to get 100 coins.
Oh, yeah.
And
But here's
what
the
you
thing.
need to do is get those 100.
Yeah, but if you have a second person, they can also collect the coins in the purple coin level ones. They can collect the coins. So it's really
You
easy
just-
to get
Whoa, whoa,
through
whoa,
when
whoa,
you have
whoa.
blew
them.
my mind.
I mean, they can pick up coins.
Yes.
Like you can.
Just hit A and
The
then they pick
purple
up the
ones?
coin. They pick up the purple coins, and it's really easy to get through
Wow.
those if you have
And,
another
and
person.
gold coins.
You just
Yeah.
changed this game.
All you need is a friend.
I did it by myself.
None of you have friends.
Oh, wow. How am I going to explain this to my wife that she has to help me for work?
Yeah, once you discover it, that's why I was really serious about that extra mode is that it's not just collecting the little stars. You can help through all of that stuff. You can pick up the purple coins, you can pick up the gold coins, you can pick up extra lives,
So the big
and you can pick up
question
the
mark
life
coins.
mushrooms. You can even hit the star bits into the dice that roll and roll those
Wow.
yourselves. Like there's a
I had
lot
no
you can
idea.
actually do with it. And so playing through any of those levels cooperatively is actually really easy.
That's. I think a handful of us here are just sitting here
Very-
and what
very-
we just learned.
Skip is thinking about all the hours he wasted.
now I'm proud of myself.
You're at 120. You're at 120.
I did 120.
which is amazing because and this is where I'm going to come to sort of my one hang up. I can't say it's with the game because it's not with the game. When it comes to the really challenging stuff, especially when you have Yoshi and he's going really fast, I don't think there's anything wrong with the game. I think the game highlights the limitations of the Wiimote, that you cannot finesse it as you can with the traditional controller. And I do not think that if I could use the classic controller with it, that would improve anything, that those sticks are just too wobbly and wonky. It's almost that they've kind of shown up their own technology with Super Mario Galaxy 2. You just, like platformers are all about precision and that level of skill. And I want to be able to show it off in this game. And I know I can get all those really fast challenges. But that damn nunchuck, I mean, it's a piece of plastic that does not have clear directions.
No.
Or that it's so easy to just go a little bit off to the side and boom.
See, all of my problems were with the camera angles. Like, even when you have the option to kind of switch it up and change your camera angles, like, it wasn't the one that I wanted or it wasn't kind of the right one. And I got stuck in areas where it very clearly wanted the camera to fix right there. And that's not what I needed at the time. And, like, half of my mistakes were because, were camera. And it's even, like, I don't know if I have, like, stubby thumbs or something, but it's hard for me to reach up the stupid Wii remote
No,
and
that's-
hit those.
that's-
No,
that's just
that's
a
everyone.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Hold up your thumbs. All right. America will decide.
Wow, you just condemned her to the comments.
I can't wait to read the forum.
I will say with the cameras, I did really. I was gonna start sobbing off camera. I really enjoyed I was in the big world when you actually physically jump onto the N64 camera control buttons. I don't know if you noticed that. There were like those big yellow icons. Those were the camera
missed
control
that.
buttons on the N64
right.
controller.
And that's the thing. It's reverted back to pretty much the same options as on the N64, even though
Up, down, left,
I believe
right,
you
and it's
had
just-
full control in Sunshine.
I think so. Yeah.
It's just not always to your advantage.
Right.
I just wish I
The
could
camera in
use that
Sunshine was
GameCube
not.
the GameCube controller.
I know.
Yeah.
There's,
It's just
I tried.
I'm trying to think
It
of
was,
any
like,
reason
denied.
why it needs motion control, and the only thing I can think of is Yoshi. Like the aiming with the tongue is really
Yeah.
good. That's
Yeah, that was a
that's
lot
what
of
makes
fun,
Yoshi
yeah.
better than he was in Sunshine. But as far as like jumping and then doing the thing to make the platform switch, you can just
Yeah, but how
assign
would
that
you
to a
collect
button.
all of the star bits, and how would the second
That's-
player play
that's true.
along
Yeah,
with
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Because, I mean,
They could
that
suck
really,
onto you
that
like
really
Ratchet.
requires that.
That's what I think. There should be
Control.
okay.
So the pointing, maybe not so much as the motion.
Why not? At the very least, if Nintendo could compromise to come up with some form of a controller that's like it looks the same, but it's like the pro version where
Wii
like
Motion Plus.
no. I'm thinking with the nunchuck. That like when you're moving, you really have
Yeah.
what feels like more of a 1-to-1 rather than this kind of he pretty much wants to go diagonally. I mean, when you get the fireballs,
Yeah.
it's like trying to get a diagonal fireball is a pain in my ass, and I wanted one. You know,
You really wanted that diagonal fireball.
I had to get rid of all those boxes so many times.
Oh yeah, I know I know where you
everyone
are.
knows. Now, as you pointed out, what still sort of remains in terms of tone still has that kind of grating kind of charm to it.
I find it so insipid.
But they did get rid of so much of the story.
They did.
They should have gotten rid of all of it.
I'm curious what remained, why it remained, because there is this big fat star that's like, hey, you did well.
No,
yeah,
the-
he's like,
I know,
I'm
I did
gonna
it.
They
talk
need-
to you. It's like,
they
I don't
need-
want to talk to you.
They always need something to push you to the next level. It's very bare bones narrative
Yeah.
that
But we
you
all
need.
know to go to the next level.
We all do, but people playing it for the first time might not.
I can't believe that. Like you.
Now, do
You
you
can only
think,
go-
actually, as an interesting point, do you think this is going to be anybody's entry level Mario?
Probably not. No.
I think their ass would get handed to them.
And I think they know that with
No, but kids.
they're clearly dividing the Mario into New Super Mario Brothers and then Mario Galaxy. Because New Super Mario is fun for the whole family, and it requires skill, and it's
What
a very
happened to
challenging
Paper
2D
Mario?
game. That's a good question.
Paper Mario.
I want that back too.
Yeah.
I want
What
a third one.
what
of
was
those.
that last one?
Super Paper Mario, wasn't it? The
That one
Wii
wasn't as
Well,
good.
there was the one on the Wii. What was that?
Yeah,
one?
that's
That's the one on the
last
Wii.
That's what we're talking
that
about.
one was just kind of weird.
That was
but,
really weird.
That was weird.
Proper Paper Mario 3 would be awesome for
Yeah.
E3, well, maybe.
But I think kids are. When you go back and you play all those old games, you're like, how did I do this?
True.
And you realize, oh, it's because I was a kid and I didn't have a job and I was going to get one game and I was going to play it until I was finished with it. We got to give kids more credit. I think they can do
they
it.
have little thumbs. It's easier. It's easier to control that. I know
Are you
it.
making fun of Abby again?
No, I'm just saying they have little thumbs.
That was
Hey,
so
I
unwarranted.
wouldn't take that from him, Abby.
When I lose change in the sofa, I like to find a kid to come get it out. So I don't put my
Could
big
Abby
hand.
do it?
Something's
Clearly,
going
I'm already
down.
going to have to go over and point at the screen and stop the things.
So, Super Mario Galaxy 2, obviously, 5 out of 5 is good. As you can see, yes, it definitely is.
I think it's great. I think it's not for everyone.
No, but it is.
But
At the
it's-
end of the day, to me, it's still Mario. It's not.
Exactly.
And I love the music. I could listen to the music all day.
Music is pretty
Okay,
great.
I'm not a huge fan of the music. Some of
Really?
them, there's
Sorry,
some
I turned
jazz
myself
stuff I like on there, but that
You like the Bumblebee one? The Bumblebee
I like
music?
the Bumblebee,
Yeah.
but it's the first world. It's kind of like, okay, this is a little bit swooping. It's like it feels
Yeah, it
like
feels more like Zelda's soundtrack sometimes. I'm
I
like,
like that though. 'cause
But
I
it
love the
reminds me
Zelda
of
one.
John
I don't
Williams
know.
stuff in Jurassic Park when they see the dinosaurs for the first time, and like clearly the camera's far more odd than I was.
I like that too.
Well, that's-
I wish the Jurassic Park soundtrack played during Mario Galaxy 2.
you can do
I
that
was
yourself.
10 when I saw
could.
Jurassic Park. It was
Abby.
awesome.
Abby brought up the I was 10 when I saw Jurassic Park.
He hates that one.
I was a sophomore in college.
I was less than 10.
Okay, anyway.
He was in the room. He watched it
born?
with the
Was I
speakers on
born?
his mom.
Probably not.
Yeah,
Nah.
one more, and any more of this will give you my sciatica report, okay? Let's do the viewer question of the week. This is from Equary.
Sure.
Andrew
Equity.
Andrew
We
just
can just
picked
call him
ones to
Equus.
trip you
I was
up.
about to say
Yeah.
Equus, which means that
Bringing
maybe
it
this
back to
involves
Harry
nudity
Potter.
and stabbing someone a horse in the eye. You can't do that in Red Dead. You can't have an Equus type scene.
DLC.
Sorry.
Yeah. Just, hey,
I'm glad that you spent time trying.
My question is simple. What makes a good ending to a game? Unlike a movie or a TV show, the problem can't be solved in a couple hours or episodes. Most games take at least 8 hours to finish, if not more. So what do some games do that others don't that allows the ending to be as compelling as at the start or at the middle? Most recently, I've been playing and loving Red Dead Redemption, and the end of the story was fantastic, but I can't put my thumb on what made it so satisfying.
So how do we answer this without spoilers?
Yes, that's definitely not.
I just started Red Dead, so.
So let's not ruin the ending of Red
And
Dead.
my answer to that is very specific to the ending of the game. Damn it, we'll do it next week. I don't know.
All right. Well,
Well, no, I mean, we don't.
I think
you-
there's two things. There's narrative endings, which I think we want to be satisfying in a game, but what seems to always be the bigger problem is gameplay endings.
Well,
That,
because
like,
they make the ending last, and then all of a sudden they're in a time crunch, and all of a sudden that awesome boss battle that they were going to do isn't quite as
the BioShock
awesome.
Plus, I think the
problem.
statistic is something like 20% of people ever finish a game. So I don't know why.
I wonder
why
if
even
that
bother,
stat
right?
still holds
I don't
true.
know, but if it is, I mean, well,
I think
all
it's
statistics are wrong
worse
anyway.
these
but
days as a result of multiplayer.
maybe. Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, I think the mentality of boss battles that some games
That's the
they
real
don't
issue.
need the hardest thing at the very end.
Or a
you
boss
know?
battle. It doesn't, it doesn't have to be a big screen filling
Here's
monster
a-
for no reason.
Here's a good way to sum up the Red Dead. Any open world game should never end. Any open world game should always let you roam through the world and do things far after the narrative story is
Right,
done.
agreed.
That'll just
The
I'll throw
world
it out
still
there
needs
like
to
that.
stay
The world
alive.
needs to stay alive.
I think it's a good point. I think the other thing that I need for an ending, and this plays into the boss battle, is that it needs to be consistent with what happened. I mean, there's so many like 11th hour. Oh no, he drank the potion that we only established in the previous hour, and now he's a horrible creature.
Yeah.
No.
With 3
See
forms.
how it's going to end somewhere
Final
at the beginning.
Fantasies 7, 8, and 9.
And there's also the expectation of something truly epic that is difficult, that will take you more than a few tries
Yeah.
to get.
And
the first
oftentimes we'll
time.
throw out everything you've been practicing in the
And that's
game
the other.
prior
I
to
mean, and
that.
that's
Yeah.
the Nintendo. And everything in that final boss battle has to incorporate every special move, everything.
I think
It's like
Mass
the summary
Effect,
of the entire
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Mass
Mass
Effect 1 and
Effect
2.
yeah.
I mean, with all the problems of Mass Effect 1, it really moved to this. Everything is about to be destroyed. You must save the Earth. And I'm like, yeah, this doesn't feel like you manufactured it at the last minute. Like, it's
I love
completely
that
flawed.
one.
But,
Yeah.
but then Mass Effect 2 falls into the end boss syndrome of having like a weird thing with multiple forms. You got
What
to fight
was
at
it?
the end.
That was weird.
Oh yeah.
The big
It
human
was like a robot, wasn't it?
big
The-
human
The
Reaper.
baby thing.
That's right.
That didn't
Oh.
matter to me as much as cool as I thought it was that I had to choose who was going to do each thing and each mission. Like
I know,
that
but it was
brought
just
the
like
whole
why
RPG
did
stuff
they
home
need to have
me.
just a big multi-form boss at the end with a life
Do you
bar?
want a multi-form boss, or do you want, as I found in games that I finished over the weekend, Batman and Killzone finally, waves of dudes?
I think it
Unending
depends on the
waves of
kind of
dudes.
game.
I want both.
You want both?
I think if I combine them, that it might make it better.
Unending
Mass Effect
waves of
was
giant
weird.
monsters.
Because you never you didn't fight anything like that any other time in the game. It was like so
No.
it was so out
Yeah.
of the blue, and it's like, oh, we're free, but there's this giant monster.
Yeah,
and you're
let's
just like,
wave it
was
around
okay.
the screen.
But in general, I have to say I really liked the ending because it wrapped it up but left it open, and
Yeah.
that's hard to do. I think I freaking hate when a game's like, tune in next week for the stunning conclusion, or and you're waiting like a year for any kind of resolution.
By which time
it's
I've
so
already
cheap.
forgotten.
Yeah, no, I mean I don't
Which
care
was
anymore.
in the first
In the
place.
case of Ubisoft's 13, which said to be continued, it wasn't.
Yeah, well, it was.
I assume
And
I was-
Adam's been waiting all these
That
years.
was- for
I've
the
been
better.
waiting on 14 for I don't know how long.
It's in development with Beyond Good
Yeah.
and Evil 2.
Both of which to be announced at E3.
Yeah, house.
And Malcolm 11, where is that?
It'll
Where
be in
is
the
it?
special press conference at E3 for Adam.
Yeah.
Like a janitor's closet, and we just bring up a little projector
Lock.
screen.
And there's a lock on the outside of the door.
Never again.
I would say another one. There needs to be that sense of something frantic. Some of you may disagree here. I very much liked the end to Resistance 1. And where it's like, okay, there's so much going on. It looks completely insurmountable, but there's been something very clever in the design where, yeah, I can actually do it, even though it always feels like the odds are are completely stacked
Right.
against
Or
me.
I was-
That's heroism.
I always like when the games come up with a mechanic that like essentially turns you just into like an invincible badass at the very end. So if you're gonna
Yeah.
give me the waves of dudes, give me the giant monsters, let me just take them out with like pretty much no effort.
I mean, you're talking about Gears, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
mean, which actually, at first I was like, this is cheap, and then I was like, but it's so
It's
Yeah.
your it's your reward. It's your pot of gold at the end.
But see,
Totally.
the ending to Gears 2 for me wasn't as I took the thing and then it blew up the set, but it was like one hit, and I didn't care for it. I
Really?
wanted something that was harder.
Well,
Like I wanted something that was a
I
little more like,
remember-
oh my god, the game is over.
I think it was at the first or maybe the second DICE. There was a panel, and Cliff was on it, and so was American McGee. I remember there was a discussion of certain things that would just become sort of normal for video games, and there was discussion that why does the ending have to be the hardest? That shouldn't the player be rewarded after their hardest effort to then just go around and just kind of trounce things?
Super Metroid.
Just,
Super
but
Metroid.
at the same time, you were doing it in Gears 2 in a way that wasn't typical to how of what you're doing in
It depends
Gears.
on the
Right.
game.
Yeah.
I mean, if they've set it up for a big final boss battle, sure. If they want to make me sort of invincible, I guess. I don't know. I just felt that one really fell flat for me. I don't know.
Obviously, Mr. What's his name? Equary?
Equary.
Equary?
Equus.
Yeah. You're Equus from here on. I can't remember the playwright's name, so I'm feeling like I really can't make a really obscure reference.
I think that's obscure enough.
Yeah, I know, but still.
No,
Actually,
those pictures
you know-
are all over the internet
what
and
this-
Patrick's desktop.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, yeah, that's right, because it's, what's his face?
Harry Potter.
Potter.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Harry Potter
There you
kid.
go.
That was the
Yeah.
whole Harry Potter tie-in.
How's he look?
Yeah, no comment.
All right, good. We'll talk in your hatch
There we go.
later. So
Lost
hopefully,
reference.
Equary, this answers your question. It's not actually a simple answer to your simple question. It really depends on the game and it depends on the player. With that, I want to remind our audience that while you may like what happens inside the studio, you will also like it if it happens on a stage on television, because feedback is coming to television, as many of you have asked. It will be for a half hour at 6:30, both the 15th and 16th of June. That is following all of our massive, monstrous, so long E3 coverage. It'll be just about everyone in this room chatting about games and what happened at E3 for a half hour. Tune in. You've asked for it. We're giving it to you. But obviously, we'll be back here next week for feedback, chatting about more games, probably watching more
Red
hair
Dead.
fall out
Red
of my
Dead
head.
Redemption
Red
next
Red
week.
Dead Redemption.
That's a game I can get behind.
The game with horses that you can't stab in the eye while naked. Otherwise, it's an awesome, 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 awesome game.
Was your character naked, or were you just never? No.
No,
Ever wants
don't-
these questions
Yeah.
answered.
Turn off the cameras.
Don't
Cameras off.
Don't
We're
ask
done.
questions. But if you want the
Feedback's
answer
over.
to that question, tune in the next feedback next
I
week.
don't want the answer.
I do that.
Everybody just stop.
Hello there. I'm Adam Sessler, host of X-Play, editor-in-chief at G4TV.com. I talk a lot about video games, and sometimes a camera is in front of me when I'm doing that. We call that Sessler's Soapbox. It takes about 2 minutes of your time, but trust me, you will hear invective and joy, and probably a lot of rude things like you've never heard before in the context of video games. I do it for you, so you should check it out. It's up every Tuesday on G4TV.com.